Thomas. You know, like he couldn't believe Jesus' spirit had come back, and because he hadn't been there when it happened, so he couldn't believe it. And then one day they're all in a closed room, and Jesus appeared through the wall. You know, it's obviously spirit body, and he let Thomas feel the hands, the holes in his hands and his side. And then Thomas could believe when he had the experience. And that was very much me. You know, I tried different churches, I had no experience, and so I couldn't believe. And but Jesus said that it's better to believe without having the experience. It's actually better if you can believe without getting the experience. But for me then, until I was around 26, I'd become atheist. I've tried churches, I didn't have an experience, so I didn't believe in God anymore. And I went to university with engineers and scientists, I did maths. So nobody believed in God. It was very unnatural, you know, few Christians on the university, they believed, but I didn't. But then I had a spiritual experience where my spirit left my body, and God showed me, this is just like your coat, you can take it off, it's just a body. So for me then, and before I felt this incredible warmth spreading through my body, and I knew it's God. I didn't believe in God, but I knew straight away it's God. And then he showed me, this is just like a coat, just your body can take it off. So then I woke up next morning, first thing I thought, there's God, and you can live with that. Because I was going to float off to the spirit world because it felt so good, but then I was pushed back. So I never had faith, you know, I never had like, oh, I believe. I didn't believe, and then I knew. So I don't know what it's like if you're just born and your parents tell you, yeah, you know, there's God, and without an experience. Anyway, but obviously when you hear the principle, it's so logical. So maybe I'll have the Bible quotes. So I should have got someone to read the Bible quotes. So Jesus said, you're of your father, the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires, John 8:44. And then later Jesus answered them. I think they're asking Jesus, this woman had 7 husbands, you know, which one's she going to be married to in heaven? And Jesus answered them, for in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. That's Matthew 22. But those who are considered worthy to attain to that age and to the resurrection from the dead, neither marry nor are given in marriage, in Luke. So I then I went to a Christian church. And this is the thing, there was no marriage in heaven. You know, people, the closest ones to Jesus just became a nun or a monk. And so basically, from the first quote, when Jesus said, your father, the devil, Satan owned everybody. Like we all belong to Satan from the fall of man. Adam and Eve are our ancestors. We were born with the original sin. We were owned by Satan, and God didn't own anybody. He prepared a long time to bring Jesus, and then he only had Jesus. Like Jesus was the only person on the earth that belonged to God. He's the only one that God could say he's mine. So he was, you know, begotten by God. He's basically owned by God, and all the rest of us, first generation at that time, we all belonged to Satan. So we were owned by Satan. Then God had to work with Christians for 2,000 years, waiting for true parents. So when Jesus died, he had no lineage. There's nobody left behind. So God owned this one person on the earth. He could live with this one person, tried to tell everybody everything, and he died without a lineage. So the mission of the Messiah, the whole purpose of the Messiah, apart from telling the truth, he comes with a sword from his mouth, speaking the truth, explaining the principle, but his main mission is to give the blessing. He comes to bring people from Satan's lineage into God's lineage. And that's his whole purpose, to get this new person to restore Adam and Eve, and then to bring people back into God's lineage. So you're either owned by Satan, claimed by Satan, or you're claimed by God, you're owned by God. And you can't argue your way out of it. So to leave Satan's lineage at that time is very difficult to go to the blessing, when people tell you, okay, you join this church and now this person's going to tell you who to marry. It's very difficult. And you can't say no to that. For me, I thought you can't say no to the Messiah. So it's actually quite difficult. You have to give up, you maybe see people you want to marry, but then God tells you that the Messiah comes, marry this person. So it's pretty tough going there, especially when Father was matching, because you just felt, well, how can you say no? And anyway, how can we choose our own spouse? Like, it's for eternity. It's not just, you know, till you get divorced. There's no divorce. It's for eternity. And you're with this person for eternity. How can we possibly know what we're going to be like or think like in eternity? It's very difficult. So, for me, I felt, well, if we can do it, if we could do it as first generation, if we could change into God's lineage, then our children won't have to do it. They'll be born into God's lineage. So they won't have to, you know, go through this restoring the sexual fall and come into God's lineage. So marriage in heaven. Okay, so a Christian marriage, if you get married in the church, in the Catholic Church, Protestant church, any Christian marriage, you always say, you know, you're until death us do part. You just marry until you die, because there's no marriage in heaven for, you know, until before true parents opens the new heaven and the new earth, there's no marriage in heaven. So you get married and you die, and that's it. You're separated in the spirit world. So it says here, God has a headache deciding which spouse you will be with. I wanted it to change the you people, who is he going to think of? Like, I always thought of Paul McCartney. You know, he was married to Linda and he had 4 children, very happy family man, and then she got cancer and died. So what does he do then? So he gets married again, and then anyway again, because that second one wasn't so great. But the one now seems a nice person and been married a long time, don't think they have any children. Okay, they get to the spirit world, then Father's got to bless everybody in the spirit world. Everybody has to receive the blessing. So everybody has to come back to God's ownership. So then what does God do? It's like a headache. Does he marry him back with Linda? Probably, because they had 4 children together. Or what about this one he's been married to ever, you know, since then? What happens to her? She just wasted her life on earth. You know, I used to go through this, you know, like, who's God going to bless people with? What about like Charles, Prince Charles? You know, is he going to be married to Diana with her 2 children? Or the person, Camilla, who he obviously loves, but she's married with 2 children with this other guy, Parker Bowles? You know, like, how is God going to sort this? How is Father going to organize all this in the spirit world, trying to make sure everybody's blessed to one person for eternity? So, oh yeah, so if we've been in God's lineage, so if we joined the church and we went through the blessing and we joined God's lineage, then if we fall after that, then we go back to Satan's lineage, but then we'd need the special grace ceremony to come back again to God's lineage. We always say if you fall after being in God's lineage, it's worse than Adam and Eve because you knew the principle. But, you know, there was very strong things that Father would say to us. Okay, so coming up to date now, Mother then now wants everybody to receive the blessing, or at least 1/3 of the world she wants to receive the blessing. So she's really trying to, how can we give everyone the blessing? So I'm a matching supporter. So to explain a little bit what we do, every other Monday, once every 2 weeks, we join together on Zoom from different parts of the world, you know, in Philippines, Thailand, all sorts of places, Canada, America, whatever. And we do Zoom and we pray every other week, every other Monday. And we're praying for guidance on how to help people. I'm a first generation matching supporter. I don't deal with second gen. Vicky does that. But so then every month, once a month, we meet together and people introduce their, I would, if I know somebody wants to go to the blessing, then I introduce them. You fill out a form and you have to show the photograph, you explain who they are, what they're like, how old they are, how tall they are. And then other matching supporters, somebody might get a feeling, oh, I know just a person for that. So it comes with a lot of prayer, but still it's not true father, it's only a suggestion. So the people then, if they're suggested, a couple are suggested together, then they talk to each other for 21 days, just get to know each other for 21 days, and then make a decision, shall we continue for 7 months? They can, after 21 days, they should decide, shall we just go and have a heavenly courtship for 7 months to see if we want to go to the blessing. So so they do that, and then they can make the decision. So people can then, they can decide, no, this is not for me, this person, or there's many obviously difficulties because there's with COVID, they couldn't even meet, people couldn't even go to each other's country, and now there's a war in Russia, so it's very complicated to even meet, and you're supposed to at least meet before you go to a blessing. So that's as a first gen matching supporter. So the reality then is that we need more brothers. There are a lot. This is the truth, I mean, it's best to tell people the situation, because when I was trying to match Abby, sorry, Abby, but we didn't know that there weren't many brothers. We didn't know, nobody told us there aren't many brothers. And so it's only when we went to a blessing parent type workshop that we saw, okay, well, we've got daughters here, we're in a team, and there were 16 with people with daughters, and there was one guy with a son who was very picky. So it's very difficult for both, because if you're a brother and you 20 sisters jump on you and say, 20 mothers jump on you and say, marry my daughter, marry my daughter. Actually, that's pretty, it's very confusing for the brother. It's really confusing. I don't know what they should do, really. You've got to get an answer from God. You've got to find out from God who's the right person. We can't know ourselves. When I was matching my kids, as soon as father said, you've got to match your own children, it's like, well, your first instinct, I can't match my own children. I don't know. You've got to find out from God, and I would never have chosen someone myself just randomly. You can go on the website and you just read and oh yeah, maybe he's rich, or he's got a good job, or he's clever, or whatever, he's beautiful or handsome or whatever. It's not the right way. You don't know down the line. You don't even know your fate, your destiny. You don't know if you're going to die of cancer. Father used to match people. If one was going to die of cancer, he'd match someone with a long lifeline, and they would inherit each other's, what do you call it?
Longevity.
Fortune.
Yeah, fortune or whatever. Yeah, so then things could change. So you cannot, honestly, in my opinion, you cannot decide yourself who to marry for eternity. I think you can't. And I personally could not decide who my children were going to marry for eternity. So it was pretty tough, but I had to get an answer from God. I prayed for names, and luckily Ben got father's matching. So, and for Vicky, we prayed for 7 days. We usually pray for 7 days, even when you're introduced to someone. And Vicky and I both prayed. The first instinct when I matched Vicky, first instinct is no. It's like a brother. She knew him. It's just a brother. And then after praying we prayed for 7 days. After 3 days, we both couldn't imagine anyone else. And then when I matched Ellie, she said no straight away. She knew him on STF. I got some spiritual guidance that this guy like waves the spirit world when Vicky mentioned this person who scared Ellie with the hacker. And I got waves from spirit world. And then I prayed for 7 days about it. And then I was waiting for a dream, but nothing happened. But then Ellie got a dream. So we went to see her in London. At the end of that 7 days, it was a special GP, Global Peace Festival, something. And I went to Ellie. First thing she said, am I matched? So after the 7 days of praying, and I'd got this person, and then when I told her who it was, she said, no, you know, he's younger than me and all the girls like him. And, you know, she said, no. So for me, I can't, if I pray and get an answer from God, I can't go back to God and say, oh, sorry, she said no. I can't. You can't say no to God. Or, you know, I asked God, give me somebody. He gave me somebody and she said no. So what do? I couldn't do anything. I just had to wait. And I waited about a year. And they were on STF. Ellie was on STF and James was on STF. And after a year, she came back from STF and I said, I mentioned him again after a year. And she said, you're still thinking of him? And then she said, actually, he plays the violin. And she's a music teacher. And anyway, then she sort of like, it took her a year to actually accept James, you know. You'll see her in 2 weeks. She's coming back with a little baby. Okay, so you need more brothers. So when you're praying all the time for to match people, you know, all over the world, then things start to come to you. So I remembered people, and you know, with Facebook, you can actually contact people you knew before. So I remembered a brother who joined when I first went to Aberdeen as a pioneer, Marcus. He joined the church. He was in the church for 3 months. He was fundraising on the street for 3 months. And then it was Christmas. And he went home for Christmas and he never came back. So I remembered Marcus and I was trying to remember what's his second name, you know. And anyway, I remembered Marcus Wilson. So I looked on Facebook and I found him there up in Scotland, Peterhead, there he was. So I contacted him on Facebook. We were chatting away, you know. And then I said, are you married? And he said, I'm divorced. He has a son and he's divorced. And I said, oh, maybe I should find you I could find you a wife. And he said, what are you waiting for? You know, sometimes we don't think that there are people around who would like to get married. Then there was George from Aberdeen. George was, he hated fundraising. He really couldn't fundraise. He would go green. He was nearly sick. He would stand at near the wall with the One World and he was terrified. And he left the church, you know, he was in church for a while, but he couldn't do it. And then he tried again. He came back. He was such a pure brother. He was just like 18 when he joined and very pure. And he tried again. But the first thing that the British leaders sent him on a fundraising team to restore the past, but he couldn't, you know. So anyway, I contacted him. He was married with 2 daughters and he really wanted the blessing, you know, he really wanted the blessing. And I put him in touch with the, you know, the situation, how to go about it. So that's him. And then there was another guy, Larry, he was an American. And he also, I think he joined and he was in the church for a while, but I think he was matched actually to a Japanese sister and he couldn't go through with the blessing. And then he left and I never saw him. So I found him on Facebook. It's very easy to find brothers on Facebook. You can't find sisters because they've changed their name. They've got a married name. You know, I've searched for sisters, can't find them. So anyway, Larry, he's in America, so I found him. And he's now in contact with the church. He's married, but divorced. Well, I don't know if he's been married, whatever, but he has a son and he has a Chinese wife in China. So he'd like to get the blessing with his Chinese wife. So, but his son is now on a workshop in the USA. So that's Larry. And then Mother wants everyone to receive the blessing. So there's tribal Messiah blessings. And it's actually not that difficult. Well, you know, it feels difficult. Well, we gave lots of tribal Messiah blessings on the street, giving wine and everything, but to actually try to really bring someone into your tribe, give them the blessing, the holy wine, and educate them. So Halvard always goes to Men's Shed, and he's been going there for years now, 3 or 4 years, I don't know. And there was a guy there that he knew, Trevor, who's English, and his wife Margaret. They would visit us all the time. Every week they would turn up at our house and they would visit us. But they didn't believe in God. They were really like our religion, you know, they're very not at all religious. And then they went back to England eventually, but we knew them really well. We'd sit talking for hours. But they went back to England. And then once when Halvard was in Norway, they came back and turned up came back to Ireland for a visit for a special reason. And they turned up at the house. So I felt really bad that we'd never given them the blessing. And I was really trying, and we were sitting in the kitchen, we're talking and talking, maybe for like 1 or 2 hours. And something came up in the conversation about spirit world or death, or something came up in the conversation that I just said, oh, I could give you a blessing so you can be married in the spirit world. You know, otherwise you'll be, and that's all I said. And they said, okay, just like that. And so I was very scared. I thought, oh, where's the wine? And, went up and found the holy wine in this little case we'd had, which I'd never used, you know, that little thing. And I gave them a special little silver cups and 2 parents' pictures on the wall and they were standing. I told them stand up, and I just told them what to do. I just said, okay, Margaret, you bow and receive the wine, drink half of it. Trevor will bow to you, you take it, drink it. I just told them what to do. They just did it. And then they got the blessing, and then they went back to England, and I haven't seen them since. But, you know, so sometimes if we just, especially when you tell people that if you take the blessing, you'll be married in spirit world, otherwise you're going to be separated, especially a couple who are very close. Okay, True Mother's blessing. Okay, so going into the practicalities then. So True Mother wants everyone to be blessed, hopefully in Korea, if possible, but now they're doing online blessings, even for tribal, previously married couples. Even previously married couples now, before they had to go to Korea, but now they can get blessed in their own, you know, nearest place where there's a blessing, maybe London, say. They would be able to go to London, previously married couple, and receive the blessing. So people have to apply on the blessing for you. I wonder if you can go into these. You know that FFWPU.org, that information one, can you go into that one to show it on there or not? Anyway, people can look. No, the third link to get information on the, and it doesn't matter, you can look at it afterwards, just remember the links, because you can get all the information like what you have to do. You have to do 21-day divine principle education. You have to do an interview and confession. So all these details are on this FFWPU.org website. And that's the previously married couples can now attend the Cosmic Blessing by Mother by internet. And you need 21-day educate and then the confession. And you have to apply on the bcmatching.org, that's the Blessing for You website, and you put on your picture and you talk about yourself, and you probably already know how to apply. So True Mother at the moment really wants to bring back all second generation or people that have left the church. And of course they need special grace. But everyone is hoping, it's not for sure, but Mother can't give a special grace just because she wants to. She can't just say, oh, I'll do a forgiveness ceremony, I'll give special grace. She can't do it whenever she wants. She has to fulfill certain conditions, certain indemnity conditions. And because she's building this temple where you can meet God in this temple. So God can actually come down in this place and you're going to be able to feel God there. And because it's going to be completed in May, then people in the blessing department are all getting excited thinking, oh, maybe she'll give her a special grace, but that's not from Mother. That's just people getting excited. Oh, that's a big condition. Maybe I don't think it's been more than 7 years. You were at that meeting the other night. 7 years since the last special grace. It's not something you can just think, oh, I'll just get forgiven, you know. But anyway, she wants to bring back, especially second generation who've left the church, you know, given up. And it's not, maybe not the parent, maybe the parents aren't the best people to approach them. Maybe that's a friend or brother or sister. Maybe there's someone else they were close to, they trusted more, who could approach them. And it might take a long time. You know, I don't think you can rush it through till May. I mean, the next blessing we hope is in May, and nobody knows if there's a special grace anyway. But if there is a couple that left the church, one is a second gen and got married to a first gen, and if they got married, legally married, then they can, and if there's a special grace, there's lots of ifs, but it's a long process anyway, so it's good to start approaching them so that they can attend the special grace and get married as a blessed couple. So the Heavenly Tribal Messiah blessing is different to the cosmic blessing. True Mother gives cosmic blessings. Heavenly Tribal Messiah blessing is like we can give our tribe, but we cannot give our children a tribal blessing, you know. So I mean, how about we can't say, oh yeah, Abby, you can be in our tribe, we'll give you the wine, you know, this sort of thing. You can't do that. It has to, second generation have to receive a cosmic blessing from True Mother. I think that's about it. For a long time, not too long. So the last thing, 2 days ago, read this in, I thought it was relevant, read it on the Hundoke. And it said, when Russia and the United States participate in cross-cultural marriage, the world will be completely liberated. Okay, thank you, that's it. I just say, beloved Heavenly Parent, thank you so much for your blessing, your guidance. Thank you for true parents, for true mothers trying so hard to continue living on this earth, to be able to bless a third of the world. And we pray that you can open our eyes and that we'll be alert to realize, oh yeah, this brother has been single a long time. Maybe we should ask him if he wants me to find him a wife. Father, we pray that you can give us a guidance to these people that we're looking for, these people who will really be open to being blessed and joining your lineage. We pray all these things and ask you to share the rest of the week with us. In my name, Patricia Iverson, Blessed Central Family. Adieu.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you for the service. So to conclude our Sunday service and start singing together Song of the Garden, and then we're going to go ahead with the announcements of the week.